Welcome back, everybody, to yet another episode of The Cover 2. We're back in the studio.
Yay!
I'm Patrick Neal, Grayson Mann, co-host as always.
Let's go.
I believe this is episode 14.
We're close.
We're
one more to 15.
One more to 15. We're trying to work to get this on Spotify in podcast form. So if you're listening to this on Spotify, we appreciate you tuning in. If you're watching the show, we appreciate your viewership as always. But anyways, the national championship was last night.
Oh man, what a game!
It was a very, very good national championship. I mean, the national championship's always going to be a good game.
Yeah.
But this one especially was very tight for the majority of the game, and up until the very end of the game, of the last 2 minutes or so.
Yeah, and it came down to a 2-minute drill, and I guess you have. So we go back to the last matchup where they had the overtime win. So you have 2018, Clemson rolls over Alabama. 2019, LSU rolls over Clemson, and they pull away. In 2020, it's a little bit closer, but then Alabama pulls away. Yeah. So this was one where the entire time you're engaged, and you got the best of both halves, because if you're a defensive guy, you had a 6-9 score at halftime, and then the fireworks show in the fourth quarter where they just traded.
It opened up a little bit.
Yeah. And this was like a fist fight, basically. You were just waiting for one of these teams to pull that knockout punch. And it looked like Bama delivered it when Stetson Bennett had that fumble, but then he responded unlike I've ever seen him before. That was unreal. Those throws,
they were great. I mean, Stetson Bennett, especially the first drive, he came out looked pretty uncomfortable, if being honest. And seeing that, I personally thought, I was like, oh no, this isn't good. This might be an issue for Georgia. Maybe the lights are too bright for him. But no, Stetson went out, proved everybody wrong. Said he's had enough of the 1980 jokes.
Yes, he has.
Personally, I'm a little sad that I can't make those to my friends anymore. But well done, Georgia. I mean, they've been the best team, I think, pretty clearly all year. Yeah. We talked about them every single week as clearly being the number one team, and they just go out and proved it.
Yeah.
And they were talking about beforehand how top 5 teams that played each other twice were like 0-5 or. The team that won the first time has never won again the second time, and Georgia went out and did that exact same thing. So not only does Nick Saban lose to one former assistant this season, which had never happened before this season, but he loses to another in Kirby Smart, and Kirby Smart gets over the hump that he's been trying to get over for a pretty decent amount of years. And
I think this was the game where the identity of Georgia finally, we've been talking about it all year. This is a defense that's quick, that hits you hard.
Extremely quick.
The speed, I've never seen it like this before. I don't know if ESPN's playing it like they're increasing the speed on the broadcast, but whew, they were flying. And then in the end, they were able to get that 8-point lead by just running the football. And you had that one guy that dove over the pile like he was like, I want to be a part of this too.
I can't remember who it was, but that was so funny. We were sitting, me and a few people were sitting just on the couch, and we see that, and it just started cracking up because that was hilarious. That kind of showed like Georgia's personality, their kind of energy that they had brought to this game a little bit. But like you were saying, oh my gosh, Georgia's defense is so fast. Like it's absurd. It's like you said, you're putting on the TV as ×2 speed, or you've cranked Georgia's defense speed ratings all the way up to 99. They all run sub 4.2 40s, I guess. But this isn't a knock on Alabama, I don't think. Alabama played a very, very decent game. It was very unfortunate that Jamison Williams went out with what is now known as an ACL tear. You lose your number 1 and your number 2 receiver to ACL injuries.
Both against Georgia too.
Both against Georgia, both in the second quarter. It's really unfortunate. I think Georgia is a little like we can't say that if Jamison Williams was in that game the entire time that Alabama was going to win. But you never know. And I think Georgia's extremely fortunate that they didn't really have to worry about Jamison Williams the rest of the game.
Yeah, there's that deep threat. Jamison Williams provides Bama, and what they've been able to have for the last couple of years is that if they need a touchdown play immediately, they need a spark. Jamison Williams is that guy. And on that same play where he got hurt, it was like a 40-yard catch or something.
Exactly.
He ran just across the middle. Georgia wasn't accounting for him. It's unfortunate the way it happened. Non-contact, you immediately see him grab his knee. You just know that if it's not an ACL, it's going to take him out of the game at the very least.
The replay was kind of nasty too.
Yeah.
It is not great, but I always hate seeing that. Oh my gosh.
They're like, we're never going to replay this, not at this angle, and they'll keep going it over. I'm like, I don't want to see that. But
Yeah.
I think for Bryce Young, the way he responded in the fourth quarter, besides the interceptions, it was, I think for him, he was feeling the pressure of Georgia's defensive line. They were coming in, they were making some schemes, they were having a lot of, for Bryce Young, it was, you had to get the ball out super quick, and they didn't really have that speed guy like Jamison Williams where they can just put him on like a mesh concept and just toss it to him and let him get yards after catch. They were still in this though because of him and that poise that he's shown all year.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of saw the effect that Jamison Williams coming out of the game had for the Crimson Tide. I mean, there were a bunch of plays where the ball being thrown, Bryce Young had a bunch of good throws, but the receivers, for whatever reason, couldn't come down with it. And if you have someone like John Mechie or Jamison Williams in those positions, maybe they come down with it. But Alabama had Ajayi Hall, who, if you remember, went off in their spring game.
Yeah.
This past spring, but he played all right. He had a good, pretty shifty move where he put some Georgia defenders on skates.
Yeah.
I believe I'm not positive, but I want to say the reason he didn't play much this season is because he was kind of in Nick Saban's doghouse. I don't know. Ironically enough, doghouse.
I see what you did there. Okay.
But I don't know how true that is, but that's kind of what I had heard. But maybe next year he comes out and lights the world on fire. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and what a game this was for Kirby Smart, because we said it as well as this was like the perfect combination of everything for Georgia. This was the perfect storm. If there's going to be a year to win the national championship, it had to be this one, because we're going to talk about earlier or later with Georgia, they're losing a lot of starters on defense. That identity that they've built, they're losing their defensive coordinator to Oregon. This was their final song if they were going to get, because Bama's going to be back. Ohio State's going to return. They're going to come up with a fury after losing to Michigan. Clemson, fingers crossed, will be back. So this was the year for Georgia to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Like this, I think it was clearly the best shot Georgia had at winning the national championship. That's not to say Georgia won't win national championships in the future. Maybe it'll be another 40 years. I feel like Georgia fans probably hope not, but
mark it.
2062 will be the next Georgia championship.
42 years. Okay. But yeah, then it'll be 2064.
Wait, yeah.
Cover 2,
math, right?
Math.
Well, yeah, we're not very good at math, as you can see. But, it was a very, very good game, I think.
I enjoyed that.
To sum it all up, it was a very good game to kind of tie a bow on a very, very good season. A lot of parity, I think, in college football, which we hadn't had too much of. You get a new winner, somebody besides Alabama and Clemson, and Ohio State, even LSU. You get 2 new playoff teams, although they didn't. It wasn't overly close, but a very, very good season, I think.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of chaos this year. We really didn't know what the Final Four. I mean, we had a year where Oklahoma, Ohio State, Clemson, familiar faces that we've seen all this playoff rotation, they weren't here. So they had these new blood teams. Georgia, they got their redemption, and with a walk-on quarterback from JUCO, this kind of stuff you don't just. If it was a movie script, it would not get made because it just sounds ridiculous.
Do you think Stetson Bennett gets like a statue?
I think so for sure. I think it's got to be like the Joe Burrow with the cigar with LSU. Stetson Bennett.
Bennett.
His Good Morning America.
Yes, exactly. His Good Morning America interview where he's clearly out of it.
He had too much magic juice for all the kids out there.
Magic juice is what we'll say. But yeah, I think Stetson could get a statue.
I think so.
Put him in like a mailman outfit.
Oh my gosh. All right, so
get him in like the USPS.
Not only are we up-and-coming sports analysts, we are also future architects.
Yes,
with Georgia football.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to be the. Okay, we got a plan. We might have to cut the show short because we got to get started. But
we'll get on that for you, University of Georgia. We'll get a nice statue of Stetson as a mailman. Anyways, I think we talked about this game a little bit. I think maybe we should Do you want to recap a little bit of
Let's
kind
reminisce.
of our best, our favorite moments throughout the season?
Oh, there's one.
Like we just said, it was an absolutely crazy season. A lot of upsets, a lot of memorable moments. Grayson, you have anyone specifically?
I just want to start. So we always love a good upset, and this was one that we didn't really. I mean, Texas A&M is no slouch. They're no pushover. But this was a year where Alabama was just this Bryce Young's Heisman season, and having that family, that viral video of their family crying after the Texas A&M kicker. I can't remember his name.
I don't remember.
Regardless of the point, it was a fantastic game. Calzada had an excellent game. He was getting hit in the mouth. It was one of my favorite SEC upsets, and I always love to see, no offense to Alabama fans, I love to see you guys just on the ropes and have an exciting finish. That was one of my favorite games of the season.
That whole day was crazy. Like, if you remember, you had Arkansas, Ole Miss. It was like 52-51.
Yes.
You had Texas and Oklahoma. Texas blew, a 28-7 lead. You had, Penn State, Iowa, I believe. You had Notre Dame, Virginia Tech was close. Michigan, Rutgers, I think, was close. Michigan, it was either Rutgers or Nebraska. I can't remember. But
I think it was Nebraska because they were on the road. It was Nebraska, I think.
Okay.
Yes, because Nebraska almost had them.
Anyways, it was a close game that Michigan almost lost. That whole week 6 was absolutely nuts. That was probably my favorite week in college football this
It was
year.
quite the tone setter too,
Yeah,
because you had to go back and forth because the two noon games were Ole Miss and Arkansas going to like the 2-point conversion at the very end, and then you had the end of Spencer Rattler as we knew it, and then the emergence of Caleb Williams in that game.
Oh yeah.
What a week! I
know.
forgot about that.
That was a great week. But another nice moment I thought was pretty spectacular, the Mayo Bath. I mean, look, there was no other bowl game that I think was as hyped up as the Mayo Bowl, even though like it's the Mayo Bowl and it's South Carolina versus North Carolina, Battle of the Carolinas. South Carolina came out on top. Shane Beamer got concussed.
Oh my gosh!
By a Gatorade jug filled with like multiple liters of mayo.
I think concussed is putting it lightly. I think it was like if I was there, he would have been hospitalized.
Yeah, it was something. But Grayson, I got a question for you. Who would you most want out of any coach?
So I can go from any
coach.
Okay.
Who would you most want Mayo Bath?
I got two.
Okay.
It's the two grumpiest coaches of all time. I'd love to see Bill Belichick get.
Solid.
Yes.
Maybe if he wins a ring, another ring.
If they win the Super Bowl this year, and
beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
Could happen.
And then just gets Mayo Bath.
And then the grumpy Nick Saban. I think you got to Mayo Bath Nick Saban after he gets a bad interview question.
I think
because that's when he's the crankiest.
I think Nick Saban's the clear number one option for a Mayo Bath. But what about I think Andy Reid would probably enjoy it a lot.
Like people are just gonna make fun of him because if he
That's true. That's true.
I don't want to see that.
Or what about maybe somebody like.
I don't want a coach. I want a commentator. Gus Johnson.
Brian Kelly maybe. He's got Southern twang.
His family.
Supposedly he's got some Southern twang now. And if you're watching the Mayo Bowl, Duke's Mayo is all about Southern twang. So you got that little connection. You could potentially, it would form a pretty nice union, I think.
I would reckon that me and my family would get the Mayo Bath.
Or maybe mulleted Mike Gundy.
Oh man, that'd be a tough.
See what happens to his hair.
Yeah, I mean, does it stay in that perfect shape after the Mayo Bath, or does it fall apart? This is a topic that the real podcasting listeners they want this.
These are the real questions we should be asking. What about Coach K at the end of the year when Duke's inevitably won the NCAA tournament because it's Coach K's last year and there wouldn't be any other way. The refs are gonna for sure make sure that happens.
Oh, it'll be Clemson.
The NCAA will for sure be making sure that Coach K wins title in his last year. But everybody, he's surrounded by all the greatest Duke players of all time. You got Leitner, you got Grayson Allen even.
Grayson Allen might trip somebody though.
Grayson he might be carrying over the Mayo.
He would be the one
trip, knock somebody with it. Or actually, no, he'd trip whoever is carrying it. Yeah. But, he's surrounded by all his favorite players, all the greatest Duke players that he has coached.
They're like, hey, JJ Redick, if you can make this 3, I'll get Mayo bath.
It's like the Nickelodeon when they like slime people. They just like release it from the rafters.
They need to do the instead of the slime, they do like the Duke's Mayo Bowl, like the DVP, the Duke's Most Valuable Player, DMVP.
Oh, that's a shout. That would be nice. But anyways, probably enough of the Mayo Bowl. Hopefully we got people still listening at this point.
They probably turned it off. They're like,
but there were just so many awesome moments. You had like Cincinnati, I think, was probably the feel-good story of the year. Maybe not. Maybe people hated that a group of 5 got into the playoff. But I loved it too. So.
I would like to, even though most Clemson fans might roll their eyes, I kind of liked being in Death Valley for those close games. I didn't like it at the time, but like in the moment, like Boston College, that 8 o'clock primetime game, I brought a buddy up from Auburn, got to experience that weekend. It was one of the most fun games that I've been to, besides like the national championships.
Got to experience some real Southern football.
Yes. Oh no, the Auburn slander.
Sorry, Auburn fans.
This is supposed to be a positive segment, Patrick.
That was a joke. It was clearly a joke.
Oh, I got one. Kansas beating Texas.
Oh, another great one.
This is like, all right, I'm just gonna like address. This segment's all over the place. We're just reminiscing at this point, but it's fun.
It is quite fun. If you're ever bored, I'm telling you,
reminisce.
Just sit on your couch, reminisce. Greatest college football moments of all time. My favorite of all time, speaking of, Braxton Miller's spin move against Virginia Tech. That thing was absurd. Like
that was the Chris Berman.
Yeah, Chris Fowler, I think, was calling that, and when he was like, Braxton Miller, spin move, that was an all-timer for me. But
or I got one for you. The Lincoln Riley hire, changing it pretty much.
That's not one of my favorite moments.
I like it for like the story, like gives us something to talk about.
It's a story. It's a villain arc for Oklahoma.
It is Oklahoma's Van's villain origin story, for sure.
It wasn't one of my favorites because he left his team like early.
I know it's not
out of nowhere too.
Oh God.
But
might have just like completely alienated our Oklahoma community if we had one. Sorry guys.
Maybe. But fair enough. Just a whole bunch of great moments. I think it's pretty safe to say. And
if you're listening on YouTube, comment below what your favorite moment was.
Exactly. Get some comments.
Yeah, we'll shout them out in the next episode.
I agree. But it was a great overall season. You want to transition a little bit? We can do. Throughout the season we've done our first 4 next 2, kind of for the playoff
staple
sort of thing
of our show.
So we're gonna do a really early, way too early first 4 next 2. This is it is gonna change a lot. I mean, this will
probably be the one that we disagree the most on. I guarantee, because there's nothing to base it off of.
I mean, it's really just based off of this season and who we think is going to return, coaching hires, all that. So I think for me, I'm gonna go Alabama number 1. Sorry, Georgia, but Alabama's got Bryce Young and Will Anderson returning. They're 2 best players, like they're for sure returning. Georgia, we'll talk about them, I'm sure, in a little bit. But Georgia could have potentially their entire defense.
Yeah.
Their entire starting defense, except for like Keely Ringo, leave.
Shout out.
I mean, yeah, he made a great play. Him and Jalen Carter, I think, are going to return, who both made big plays. Jalen Carter also had a blocked field goal. But Alabama is returning their 2 best players. They bring in Jahmyr Gibbs from Georgia Tech, who had good. Like 1,500 all-purpose yards. And Eli Ricks, too, who from LSU, who was a top cornerback.
It's just not fair.
It's not fair. They're losing talent, but, they're returning a significant, important part of their team. And, Jamison Williams, he did tear his ACL. I wonder if that changes anything for him about potentially returning. I doubt it, but you never know.
I mean, you could, depending on how scouts feel about the injury, he might want to go back for because it's a tough spot to get injured right in the middle of January because it's usually a year process.
Yeah.
Where you have to kind of.
But George Pickens only returned he returned in 6 months.
Why Rodgers returned in 4.
Oh, different breed, I guess.
But for me, number 1, I know that you probably brought up the best argument there could be, but I'm just going to give them the celebratory number 1 spot for Georgia, just because now we're getting the argument, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And
That's fair.
Therefore, Georgia would be that. I know that Georgia's going to lose a lot of starters and that they're going to have to build it back from the ground up, losing so much. But I think I'm just going to give them their let them sit that top spot. Let them enjoy this moment. At least for me, just put them at number 1. I know Bama probably is a better team right now based off of who's leaving, who's coming back. But I'm just going to give it to Georgia.
I will say Georgia is returning a lot of their offensive firepower.
Yeah.
They're probably losing Zamir White and James Cook.
But they
have McIntosh and they got Kendall Milton.
They
too.
Produce some.
They have 4 great running backs.
Yes.
Plus,
they have a bloated room.
It's Stetson Bennett. He said in an interview said that he wants to play football this coming year. Now I think it's pretty unlikely that Stetson Bennett goes undrafted. I think it's kind of fair to say. Like in all honesty, he's a great college quarterback, but as we have seen, that doesn't always translate to the NFL. He's undersized. He is
not a huge arm.
Not a huge arm. Can scramble a little bit and clearly has a winning mentality. But
reminds me of like a Jake Coker from like Alabama.
Exactly.
Well, a little bit faster.
But he can potentially return because he is a redshirt senior. So he would be able to play another year, I believe.
Bring it back. Let's run it back with the
maybe
mailman.
he runs it back. Maybe JT Daniels runs it back. But Georgia does have issues or question marks at quarterback. Meanwhile, Alabama does not, and my number 2 team doesn't.
Yes.
Ohio State. I'm going to put Ohio State number 2 only because they know who's playing quarterback this coming year. I'll go ahead and say also that I got Georgia at 3, which So I just put the 2 that for sure know who their quarterback is at 1 and 2 because they also return Stroud, they return Jackson Smith and Jigba, Travion Henderson. They're going to have another year of their team their defense gaining experience. It's kind of an experienced defense, and they got Jim Knowles coming in too.
It's mostly younger Ohio State roster. And for me, I got Bama at 2 and then Ohio State at 3.
Okay.
So we got a top 3 established.
Kind of just flipped around.
But I think for Ohio State, they're going to know what they're going to be. I think in the beginning of the year, they really didn't know what their offense, their identity as a whole was going to be, and they figured it out. I think after that Oregon game, they really got into motion. But they'll have the Michigan game to be upset about. They'll be missing the playoffs to be upset about. They're going to come back with a vengeance,
that's
passion.
true.
This will be an Ohio State revenge tour, not just for the Big Ten, but for the entire country. I think that personally they felt they were probably better than Cincinnati at the very least, thinking they could have a chance. I think that returning Stroud and Bryce Young is going to be huge because they'll just get right back on track. But for me, give Georgia the 1 just for right now. Bama and Ohio State will be, it's kind of like a 1A, 1B for me, and then Ohio State is a 2, if that makes any sense. I know that doesn't really count in the AP poll.
I'll count it.
Yeah, thank you.
But
who's your number 4?
My number 4, I'm going to go Texas A&M.
Okay.
They can potentially return a lot of their team. Again, we don't know who all is going to the draft, graduating, not coming back, all that, who's maybe even transferring. But they can return a lot of their team. They can return like A-Chain. They can return, potentially.
Is Isaiah Spiller coming back?
Isaiah Spiller can potentially come back.
Okay.
You do lose Zach Calzada to the transfer portal, but I think he went to Auburn, right?
Yes.
But they gained Max Johnson in the transfer portal. They have Haynes King coming back as a QB battle. They also have one of the top QBs in the 2022 class. And speaking of the 2022 class, they have the best 2022 class.
They are loaded. Jimbo Fisher's got his class. He's finally got it.
That they might not all be playing. Again, they also might have. They're going to be inexperienced, and all freshman teams aren't always the greatest. But I think being able to bring in a lot of studs and be able to return a lot of prior talent that they had this year will do them good.
Yeah, I got them at 4 as well. I think that it's a crowd. It stinks that A&M's in the SEC because it's such a crowded conference with Georgia, Bama. Auburn should be good. You'll have Mike Leach, Mississippi State. They're getting better. Florida, we'll see how they turn out. South Carolina is, we think, trending upwards with Spencer Rattler. It's going to be a tough conference to win 10 games. But if they can get the QB right, this class is going to be very special.
Oh yeah, is it the highest rated class of all time? I think I saw somewhere that it's the highest rated class of all time. That beat out 2021 Bama.
It could be. It could be.
So, yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's whether or not Jimbo Fisher can do anything with it. But
yeah.
Number 5 spot, I'm gonna put Notre Dame there.
Okay.
Right outside the top 4. I think they announced today or yesterday that they're getting in Brandon Joseph, the former All-American from Northwestern. Northwestern didn't have the best of seasons this year, but still a fantastic player. And I'm honestly riding this Marcus Freeman hype. I think he will be a fantastic coach. I really like how he is so much of a player's coach. He has a great personality, but also seems to be tough and demanding of his players. Demands respect, and I just think he really has this Notre Dame team buying in.
You can really tell that the players he's only been there for a year, and the players immediately after Brian Kelly takes off to be a Southern guy. They immediately say, we want him. We want Marcus Freeman as our guy. He immediately like that. He's come in and had such an impact on these players. And they didn't get the result they wanted in their New Year's Six Bowl,
Not quite.
They've got a pretty good roster. They've got a culture that's been established that's not going to change dramatically from one coach to the other. They both expect the same thing. They're going to be going for the playoffs. And depending on how their schedule goes, they do have Clemson.
Which
should be an interesting one. It always is.
It always is.
But I like Notre Dame. I have personally Notre Dame at 6. For me, at my number 5 spot, I've got the Clemson Tigers.
Oh.
They're back. I feel good about putting them in there. I know that you're gonna hear, but what about this? What about that? What about this? Losing Venables, losing Elliott. Okay, I'm gonna tell you a story about a certain freshman 5-star named Cade Klubnik.
You're putting a lot of pressure on him already.
I am going to.
He just got here I'm
going to tell you guys. Yeah, if Cade, if we run into each other, man, hey, what's up? I'm going to tell you this now. This is how it's going to go. It's going to be like Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence. Or if you want to compare it with Cole Stout and Deshaun Watson and how that dynamic works out, this will be 4 games. They're going to have, I think their first 4 games are pretty easy. They will split reps, and Cade will eventually take over as the starter. But also, not just quarterback type. I think that they're going to have those 5-star corners to be able to replace Booth and Goodrich. Mm-hmm. They're going to have, it seems like they believe in Wes Goodwin as this new guy. He seems the no risk it, no biscuit mentality as a defensive coordinator. We don't know what the situation is with DJ, but they're going to be able to rely heavily on that run game that they established in the season with Will Shipley and Kobe Pace. I think that they'll both get better. They'll both get in the weight room, get stronger, faster. This receiver core can get better. It's not the best, but it can get better with a quarterback that puts them in the right direction. With Dabo Swinney at the helm, what Clemson's done in the last 6 years, I have faith and confidence that in that ACC they'll be able to get it done.
Yeah, I put Clemson 6. So I guess we really weren't that different. We had the same 6 teams.
Guess not.
I was a little hesitant to put them 6, though. In all honesty, I don't know if I'm quite as high as you are. I mean, I put them 6 because they do, even though they did kind of clean house, they do have Dabo Swinney manning it. So, he's going to stabilize everything. He's going to make sure the culture's right. All the underlying important parts of building a football team. They do lose a lot of leaders on the defensive side of the ball, though. You've got James Skalski leaving. You've got Balin Spector leaving. You've got Nolan Turner leaving. Andrew Booth is heading into the draft. You've got Mario Goodrich leaving. So that's a lot of defensive starters. So it's whether or not those next guys can step up. You got Andrew Makuba, who had a very, very decent season. You've got the likes of Barrett Carter and
Brian Brzee, Miles Murphy.
Brian Brzee is coming back. Miles Murphy, another great defensive lineman. So it's whether or not those guys can step up. They're going to return, both of the Collinses, Dakari and Bo Collins, I believe Ngata's returning, right? Is he?
Ngata is returning, I believe, yes.
And, you get another year of DJ Uiagalelei. Whether or not he ends up the starter or Cade Klubnik is yet to be seen. So there's a little bit of issue with quarterback, a QB battle. But, that might happen with the likes of Oregon, too, who I think is I almost put Oregon at number 6, basically.
Yeah.
The only reason I didn't put them there is because they have a new head coach in Dan Lanning, who just won a national championship.
Never know.
But they also might have a QB battle in Ty Thompson, Bo Nix, all them. So I think there's a lot of questions for teams once you get past the top sort of 2, 3, 4. But it's
This is
kind
why
of too early for us to be doing this. So it's whatever we want to put.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, this is the fun part of college football. That what if we don't know what's going to happen next? We have a champion, but at this point, that's the beauty of college football too. The roster is relatively changed each year, depending on if they're juniors, freshmen, transfer portal too, the NIL. This will keep growing and developing. We might have a new playoff next year. We don't even know. That'll be. It's going to be an exciting offseason. As for what this show is going to be, for at least the next month, I think we're going to have a transition to the NFL playoffs and talk more about the wild card, what's to come, the Super Bowl. We both have a little bit of a vested interest in there.
Yeah, we got Patriots. They're playing
back.
the Bills this weekend. I'm a Bengals fan. Going to be playing the Raiders this weekend after that crazy game against the Chargers. But yeah, we'll probably be covering a bit of NFL, maybe a bit of college basketball as it gets towards March.
That was a smooth jump shot.
That was smooth. That was wet. But anyways, I think we're gonna move towards a bit of that, talk NFL draft, and of course, whenever there's college football news, we're gonna be covering
priority.
it.
Priority
so
one.
I don't think there will be any lack of content that we have. So be prepared to still get plenty of content, and just hang out and have a good time.
Yeah, certainly don't shy away just because the season's over, because we're just getting started.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But we thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Again, if this ends up on Spotify, we're about to figure out if we're going to be able to get that on there. But again, as always, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to Zach in the back for producing it. As always, the goat of editing. It's pretty sick to say, of producing. Like, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube. I feel like we haven't really said that at all. It's pretty standard to say on YouTube videos, but we just haven't really done that.
Yeah, we're slacking, but
we are slacking.
It's okay. New year, new me. That's what they say.
Of course. But again, as always, thank you for tuning in. We will see you all again next week.
Yeah. Stay safe, guys.
Have a good one.